everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Moe Anderson. I'm so excited today. We're bringing an international friend onto the podcast. As you know, we talk about leadership, relationships, communications, and business. And this gentleman, Jazz Takhar, does it all. He is phenomenal. So excited to have him on the program. Welcome, Jazz.
Dr. Moe, thank you so much for having me, and a big congratulations and kudos to you, because as a fellow content creator, I know how tough it is to get guests, to rebook guests, then actually do the editing. And you can never forget, like, the fact that you just put yourself out there on a consistent basis and you do it so well. I'm not just blowing smoke up your, you know what, like, congratulations, because we need more people like you to spread the virus that I like, which is positivity. So congratulations.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that. And I'm not opposed to smoke either, but that sounded genuine and transparent. And I know you know, because we're going to talk about your podcast program and various entrepreneurial pursuits as well. But I received that and I thank you so much. It's a labor of love for both of us. I know that. Let's just start at the beginning with your backstory, growing up, and your family, and how you got this positivity mindset.
I'm very blessed. I think I won the lottery long time ago. I've never played the actual lottery here in Ontario in Canada, but I mean that home that I was raised in, and my parents, my father and mother, father taxi driver his whole life, mother factory worker her whole life, and then I have two older brothers who really kind of parented and disciplined me. I grew up in an area on the north part of Toronto, in an area called Rexdale, that there's not a lot of people that you can kind of look up to in that area, but my family, my father, mother, and my two older brothers really kept me sheltered from that, right? And so watching the work ethic that my father and mother put in, grade 4 education from mom, grade 8 education from dad back home in India, I got addicted to it. Like, and when there was trouble that my friends were getting into, I knew coming home, I had a place to either talk about it, because my two older brothers have been through it. One of them is 5 years older than I am, and the other is 9 to 10 years older than I am. And so like, I used to be going out with the brother that's 10 years older than me. When he was 23, he was taking me out. So at 13 years old, I'm hearing conversations of 23-year-olds. So when I became 23, I'm like, wow, is this deja vu? Like, I've heard this, I've seen this, I've been through this, and like, so lucky to have him, because he had one rule, right? And I still remember, and it serves me in my business now. He meant it in a different context, but I guess I took it in a different, like, I actually use it in a different way, which was, look, I'll take you out, but I don't want you to embarrass me. So you talk a lot less than you are going to be listening. Keep your mouth shut and just listen. And he kind of said that because he didn't want me to embarrass him in front of his friends, but it serves me so well right now, right? Like, I listen a lot. People are watching or are listening to me now and saying, yeah, right, this guy ever listens. He talks a lot. I do like the sound of my own voice. I'm not gonna lie. But look, I mean, as a salesperson my whole life, I've come to learn really the way that I do business is by listening and trying to reverse engineer what people are looking for. My other brother, the middle one, he was definitely the disciplinarian in the household. Like, some homes it's like, wait till your mom comes home, wait till your dad comes home. It was wait till that brother Cam comes home, right? Like, he was the one that I was fearful of. I needed that because if not, I probably would have gotten into a lot more trouble because of my surroundings, but because I also have somewhat of an addictive personality, I think, right? Like, I get obsessed with things. Right now I'm on an obsession of producing content, but maybe that obsession could have led to something bad. But because of him and that little fear that I had of him, that kept me out of a lot of trouble. And so that then after, my father and mother telling me, and obviously they knew that school wasn't going to be like formal education. I probably was never going to be called Dr. Jazz. So I'm glad that I'm speaking to Dr. Moe right now, because my circle's getting bigger and bigger, right? But I knew that, and my parents knew that that wasn't going to be my avenue. And so they always told me, whatever you do, like, we love you, period. Doesn't matter whatever you do, whatever you fail at. Look, as a kid, 8, 9, I can't remember exactly what age, I probably heard that on a regular basis. That gives you a strong foundation. That gives you a strong foundation to say, you know what, I'm going to try a lot of things. I loved meeting people, and sales. I started to know at the age of 12 that the first time I got paid for delivering newspapers, this is it. Like, I'm hooked. I want to do this. I probably thought I was going to sell newspapers my whole life. Like, I didn't know that there's other things that you could do in sales, but that's when I got hooked with in this industry. And as they say, the rest is history now.
All right, let me jump in there, because there's a lot to unpack, just in a lot of great life lessons just in what you said. First of all, I like the communication of your family, that your brother was willing. A lot of times older brothers and older sisters, they don't want to take little brother and little sister along, as well as with your parents, and the emphasis on education, because one of the things I know we both believe in is generational wealth. And people so often think of that simply as material things and resources, but passing down values, passing down a work ethic, passing down discipline, and how to set personal boundaries, all of that has contributed to the success that you are today, along with the unconditional love, because that self-esteem, a lot of our mental health issues right now are really having to do with, we didn't get that foundation. So I want to jump over, remain in this personal lane before we branch out into the business and entrepreneur mindset. Your family now, which of those traditions are you passing on to your family?
Yeah, look, I have 2 little boys myself, 8 and 6 years old. I mean, they see daddy work a lot, and they know that I'm not home for dinner every single night. But I put my big rocks into my schedule right away, right? Like a lot of people, because I produce so much content on a daily basis now, Dr. Mo. Like, I'm at, I don't know, 10, 12 pieces of content a day on all the platforms, but you don't see my wife, you don't see my 2 little boys, right? And so people think that I'm never home. Now it's just I chose not to show that part of my life. But like Sundays, all day Sundays, Saturday nights, Friday nights, and then probably Tuesday and Monday night is dinner time. Like I do get home to have dinner with my boys and my wife, and then I put my kids to sleep, right? Now, I go, after they go to sleep, I go back to work, like not necessarily leave the home, but I'm working. And that's where that obsession and addictive personality kind of starts to show itself. But I put the big rocks in. And so for me, I mean, I think, one of my favorite things to tell my kids is exactly what my mom and dad told me. Like, man, I want you to fail so much. You don't even know, like, fail, keep failing. Just don't make the same mistakes over and over again, because that just shows carelessness, right? Or you're not listening, or you don't care. But I want you to, speaking to my little boys, like, fail as much as possible. I love you no matter what. I don't care. I don't need you to be dad and be like, run a business. I think my 6-year-old has a little video wanting to create content in him.
It's funny how you can see that early too. I've got a grandson who has a YouTube channel. He's 13 since he was 8. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy, especially today day and age, right? Like I see it in my 6-year-old for sure. Where my 8-year-old, he's a lot closer to mommy than he is me. He's quite meticulous, very, very analytical, and more, he's gonna have a much higher IQ. He probably has a higher IQ than daddy already, right? 6-year-old is higher in EQ like daddy, right? And so it's really just instilling the fact that they can come home no matter what happens outside those like my house doors. You come home and we're gonna figure it out. I don't care what you did, how bad it was, like the worst thing possible. You come home and we're gonna figure it out. And so look, they're still young, obviously 8 and 6. Like, them doing something bad is not putting their toys away or something
Gotcha.
outside in the garage, right? But like, I'm really wanting them to have that confidence that you spoke about, the self-esteem, because you're right. Like, I think if we just spread more of that, I think you're going to have less mental health problems, right? Like what people are going through. And so I think that's why I produce a lot of content. That's why I come out with a lot of energy, because I'm trying to influence people here in an ethical way, obviously. But I want people to know, like, look, you might not have had the parents that I had or the brothers that I had, but there's people around. There's going to be a friend. There's going to be like professionals that you can speak with, or just look at my content, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be trying to pour as much positivity into other people's lives.
Right. And that's beautiful. And your positivity is infectious. I mean, I try to keep things evergreen, but we're still in COVID, going on the 3rd year, and positivity can spread just like that virus, just with the simplest bit of contact. When we've got good energy and got a good spirit, I mean, it makes my day, and I try to use it to make other people's day. So I love what you're doing with that. And the boys, I can't imagine they won't look at what you're doing and what you've become, and not, mama's boy or not, and not want a piece of that. That's
yeah. Well, and that's why, I laugh with my team a lot, right? Like, they don't even know how much they're part of the future, even if they're not here. And what I mean by that is that, like, it's so cool. I'm 40 years old. I turned 40 a couple of months ago. And thank you. And so, like, in 40 years from now, my boys, and God willingly, my grandchildren, are gonna have, I don't know, probably 100,000 hours of film that they can go back to and watch. Like, I'm
archives,
already the archives, right? Like, I got all this on film, right? Like, Dr. Moe, I've been producing content for 3 years solid, and we're already at 10,000 to 11,000 hours of film, right? So give me another 40 years, way past 100,000. I can't remember my grandfather's voice. He passed away when I was like 22, 23. So not when I was super young by any means, right? But I can't remember his voice. He's passed away now. My father, I don't know how much I would give. Like, he's still alive and very healthy, but I don't remember how he spoke when he was 40 years old. He's 78 or something now, right? I would want to see how he moved along with his friends, and what was he talking about. We have some pictures, but they're so old now. Like, they're kind of ripped, like my dad used to back in the 70s have the bell bottoms. When we see pictures, and the
fly collars,
100%. He came from India. He saw people with that. Like, he just got whatever he could, right? Like, we see pictures and we think it's cool, but now my kids, my grandkids, if I'm blessed enough, will be able to hear and see what granddaddy was up to 40 years prior.
Sweet. That's great energy. And also why Zoom and Skype and FaceTime and all of that have taken off, particularly during the stay-at-home period, because people like, what, that phone call is not getting it for me anymore. And so that black and white photo, I have the same as you, all these photos, and they're not labeled, and there's no voice associated, there's no depth, all of those dimensions that bind us to one another. And I recently did a show with someone who talks about your living obituary, and it's not really a negative thing, but it's documenting your narrative so that your family knows, your grandkids and your great grandkids can hear from you what your life was like. And that's what you're doing. I also see a documentary period coming out of this, because your story is amazing, bro.
Wow. I really appreciate that, and I have a media team, and we'll get into that stuff, but I have one main guy who's kind of my cinematographer, and that's what he's going to be building. Like, I think he's starting to see it now, because he's been with me for coming up to a year, where he's building a documentary, like 100%. And I don't care if it's viewed by just my family and friends, but hopefully I can get, like, when I wasn't, like, the hours that I'm not at home, at least my wife can see, and my kids could see, and my nephews and nieces could see, like, what I was up to that whole time was actually spreading what they were lucky enough to be born into. I'm here only because my father and mother, not obviously because of the what they did 9 months prior to when I was born, but because of how they nurtured me. And now my kids, my nephews and nieces are living that, and they're lucky to be living that because of the work that we're starting to put in now.
Sweet, sweet. You referenced earlier that your family came to Canada from India.
Yeah.
I'm in the US, and I've had a few international guests. Really always thrilled when I get to talk to someone who's in another area, another region. What is, with the climate we have now, so much is going on currently. There's the situation in the Ukraine. There's a lot of talk about immigration. What has your experience been like? I've been to Toronto, I've been to the major cities in Canada, but living there, I know that you're very successful, but just for our listeners here in the US, how is the climate as far as multiculturalism?
Well, I mean, Toronto is, if not the most multicultural city in the world, it has to be in the top two. The only other place that I can even remotely think of that comes close would be New York, right? But I mean, Toronto's by far the number one multicultural city in the country, that's for sure, in Canada. So growing up, it was different. We were definitely the minority, right? Things have changed now. I mean, at the time of this recording in 2022, East Indian people, I'm of East Indian descent. We got little areas of that we live in of I don't know, over 1 million. The greater Toronto area, which for your guys and gals in the States there, to give them some context, is a 50-mile radius. We call it the greater Toronto area, 50-mile radius, that there's about 6.6 million people. East Indians make up, I think, close to 1 million of it. Right.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then you have the coolest thing, in my opinion, about Toronto is that you have a little of everything. You have a little India, you have a little Jamaica, you have a little Morocco, you have a little Germany, you have a little Holland, you have a little of everything. So whatever food you want, you can get it, and probably at minimum get it at 5 to 12 different restaurants. But now when you get to the bigger ones, like Jamaican food and Indian food, Chinese food, you have thousands, right? And so you really get a good sense of other people's culture. And as I said, I'm born in 1981, 80s to say mid 90s. I think it was a tougher time, right? Not everyone. I used to have a turban, right? You see people with turbans, right. Sikhs, and that's the religion that I am. You didn't see as many people with turbans, so it looked different. I was like, what the heck is that? Why do they wear that? You got a lot more questions. I mean, people used to look at me and say, is he a boy or a girl? They didn't even know who I was, right?
Oh, my.
But it was so early, Dr. Moe. I kind of understand it now. It's just some people were mean about it, and some people just didn't know, and they were actually curious. And so for that, I always had a lot of respect for, right? Where now, I mean, there's just every single culture here. My best friends are all of different cultures. It is by far one of the coolest things to grow up. And I'm glad that grow up in that type of environment. And I'm so glad that my kids, they don't really see color, everyone's just kind of the same. And that's neat to see. That's really neat to see.
That's very neat to see. And I ask because, thank you, I'm not necessarily trying to promote Canadian tourism, but at the same time, I've enjoyed my visits there so much. And I know a lot of people have not been able to visit Canada yet. So that is exactly what I saw, what you described, and have always, I used to live in the Midwest in Minnesota, so it was simple to go to Canada. But, I want people to hear about what life is like in other areas. I'm all about intellectual tourism. So thanks for sharing your experience and being transparent, because we've all, the US, and I'm in the South too. There's definitely been some issues, some things I faced growing up, but those obstacles are just, opportunities for growth for you, for the other person, or to expand your territory so that you go in a different direction, but you can still make it happen.
Well, I mean, to that point, right, Doctor, I love what you said there. You went through stuff, but look at you now. For your listeners who are taking their dog for a walk and on the treadmill right now, you don't see all the stuff behind Dr. Moe's head right now. I see it, there's tons and tons of frames, and it's awesome. But that's what I tell people, right? Like if someone else has done what you want to do, you really don't have any excuse, right? And I know how some people in life had such a tough, rough go, and I mean like real bad stuff happen, right? And but if someone else, one other person, actually was able to get past it, you got no excuse now because they did it. You just now need to find all the clues that they left, because success leaves clues. You got to find them and then reverse engineer exactly what they did,
Right.
and just and work backwards, right? And so look, I understand that people have had a hard time in certain areas, but I mean, we, like yourself, right? Like you figured a way out. I think it's a matter of finding out what your why is and
Right.
making sure it's strong, because humans, I mean, for all the stuff that's happening in the world right now, and there's obviously some bad apples that are in every type of group, but I mean, when humans' backs are up against the wall, don't, like, I think we do underestimate humans, right? Like, because we
Absolutely.
get to, like, we do some amazing, crazy, amazing things when
Yeah.
our backs are up against the wall. And so just figure it out. Like, go through the wall if you have
Right.
to. Forget trying to go around it sometimes. Just go right through it.
Love it. Can't add anything to that. Let's get to your career, and your career is your entrepreneurship. You've been in sales in the service industry for almost 30 years now. And you said earlier that you're just a natural born salesperson. Tell us about the real estate part of your business first. I'm very, very proud of what you've done with that.
Thank you. Thank you. So 17 years ago, I got licensed at the age of 23. And it was really because I knew there was one last major purchase that somebody would make that I wasn't involved in. And I say that because I was in car sales for 3 years. And 3 years before that, I was in the banking industry, but more of like helping people with mortgages and lines of credits. I was doing that for 3 years. Then I was selling shoes for 3 years, and not the Al Bundy type. Not sure how many people are going to get that reference, but I was
A
helping.
lot.
Okay, got it. I was helping like sprinters and marathon runners, right? I did that for 3 years. And then I sold newspapers for 2.5, 3 years as well, right? So like I really worked up the sales ladder. Like I'm not coming at people with like just hyperbole, like I'm giving people real tactics here that I've done. I've done nothing else. Like I haven't worked anywhere else, right? So knowing I did all those, I was like, I got to get into real estate because it's the biggest ticket item that the average person's going to make, right? I also want to invest in real estate, so I figured it was the best way to go about it. I started off as a solo real estate agent, helping my friends buy and really sell, not really helping them invest. 10 years ago, so 7 years into the business, is when I decided that I'm going to work primarily with just investors, because I understood that when you work with a real estate investor, it's really like investing in real estate is one of the best addictions in the world, right? It's the best
Agreed.
drug addiction in the world, right? Because you just want to do it over and over again. So they were multi-transactional. They hung around with other investors. So if I did a good enough job with Dr. Moe, she'll introduce me to Dr. Sam. You know what I mean? So like I just kind of understood that. Being in sales for a long time. And then I also wanted to grow a team. Like I knew that I didn't want to leave the traditional real estate transactions, i.e. helping someone buy their first home, helping them smart size, like move into a bigger home or a smaller home. But I personally want to focus on with investors. So what I did is build a team. And so now I'm very proud to say that I have a business partner. Him and I have a team of 54 real estate agents.
Wow.
We have a little over 11 support staff. And it's built into an organization. Like it kind of like, it's like anything else, right? Like, yeah, you have big dreams, but then sometimes you run against up against a lot of obstacles, and then you kind of sometimes forget the dream, right?
Right.
And what I mean by that is that we just wanted to help investors and have our team help with that traditional real estate. But now it's become an organization. It really has. We have leaders that are like a VP in our organization. We have a director of team operations. We have a director of real estate concierge services.
Hello.
And so it's kind of just neat.
Cut in right there and say kudos to you for having opportunities for growth, because definitely too many entrepreneurs are just thinking about them and I'll just replace you if you don't like what's going on. So I just got to give you props for that. And then
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, I mean, that's number one for us. Like, really, it is. Like, look, I mean, I have a client list, Doctor, that I've been cultivating for 17 years, which is a little over 11,151 people. I know the exact number because every night it gets reported to me by one of my team members. Mm-hmm. And so they're very important to me because they continue to buy, sell, and invest. But my staff is number one. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to coddle you for the rest of your time that you're with me. Right. I am going to give you a very safe place to work in. I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible. But the second I feel like I'm being taken advantage of over and over and over again, we're going to cut ties, because life is too short for that kind of stuff in my world, right? I'm all about removing friction in my own life, in other people's life. Like, and I mean that from a high level, like, let me remove try to remove the friction in your own head to get you to do stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also mean like real friction. Like, if you're not having fun here because of whatever reason, because of life, or you have bigger goals and ambitions, awesome. Use me as a trampoline and move on. Exactly. Right. I'm going to try to work things out. But I mean, sometimes, like, when you know, my staff hears me say staff first all the time, which they do. Mm-hmm. All the time. Like, my clients are important, as I was mentioning, but my staff is like super important. However, if it's being taken advantage of, then we're going to need to make changes, because that means I'm not happy and I don't want to be resentful. That's not the attitude and the vibrations and the frequency that I want to be on. Mm-hmm. And so I tell my team all the time, use me as a trampoline. Don't take advantage of me.
I feel you on that. Same with me with working with people, is that for a team to work, we all have to be driven in the same direction, motivated for the same mission, but also never content with mediocrity. And that's my big one, is because I find so often mediocre output is tied to a mediocre attitude. And then
100%.
Yeah, we got to do the right thing and let you be in the right environment. I mean, it makes it easier as a leader. It's hard to let people go, but it's easier for me mentally, emotionally, when I recognize you're not in the right place. We're not the 100%. Right. This is not the right organization for you. I want you to be where you're going to succeed and where you're going to be happy. And that's real talk.
100%. Like, there's like, in my organizations, I have the media team, the real estate team, and then we kind of have Jazz's team. If you're in Jazz's team, like, if I feel like I'm not rubbing off on you in terms of my work ethic, because a lot of people are tied to my production and we're not working through. Some days we're going to work 14 hours and some days we're not going to work. That's okay. Stay home. But the day, like, there is no hours if you're on Jazz's team. If you're in my, like, it is what it is, like, because that's my core team. We're going to get, now those guys know, if they call me, I pick up the phone. Right. Whatever they need, I pick up the phone. There's that core kind of group. I expect the same respect back. I mean, I think that's just fair. You're on that team. If you're staff, you're working from 9 to 5, 9:30 to 5, 10 to 6. Those are your hours. I don't expect them to stay later because they don't get paid like I do. They all have their own lives. You know what I mean? And I understand that. I made that decision very, very long ago. Right? That, look, I'm not going to ever push my ambitions onto other people, except if you're on the core team of Jazz, because that's what we're like, that crew, we're going to go on and move on to really, really big things, because I'm not looking to just be mediocre, as to your point, right? Like, I mean, I could probably get out of bed and do average results, like literally just get out of bed and average results happen, because I put in, like, I don't mean that from an egotistical perspective.
I agree. I feel like, you. I feel you, like, totally. I could dial it in, is what I say, if I wanted to.
Okay, so you get me, Doctor. Like, you know what I mean? Like in sales, I can pretty much just get up and sell something. Like, I don't have a hard time. I'm trying to go worldwide. I want to be I want to be in Jerry's world. And I know you understand what I mean by that, because that stadium's 100,000 people. And I want to be in Texas Stadium talking to 100,000 people and doing my thing. But that's going to take a lot of effort. It's funny because my cinematographer before this podcast, he just said to me, he's like, Chaz, how many podcasts do you want to get on this year? Like, be on other people's podcasts. I was like, 100. He's like, oh, you want to be on 100 people's podcasts? Why? I was like, well, let's go through it. I go, if you think of a comic, right? Like, let's use Kevin Hart. He was one of my favorite, as an example, right? Okay. So Kevin Hart, when he was going to do his Netflix special, he goes around small little comedy tours, small like comedies, and does small little comedy specials, where he's working out his material, because then he's preparing himself for the big show. Kobe Bryant takes 1,000 shots after practice, the exact same shot every single day. That was his routine. God bless Kobe Bryant, right? Why? Because he was prepared. Oh, Gianna, yes. Why was he doing all that? Because he was preparing himself for the championship games, right? And so that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to put in the work now, because in 5 years I can say, okay, I've been on 500 podcasts. I've done 500 webinars. I've really worked out my material. I know what worked. I know what didn't work. I know what Dr. Moe did resonate with. She didn't resonate with. Now let's go. I'm ready for the big shows, right? And so, but that takes work, and the core people around me. I mean, look, I think they're going to be able to jump on my back and win a lot in certain aspects, but you got to go through a lot of work, right? And that's tough for people, and I understand that.
Well, and what I love about what you just said is that, as you know, this is something I do on the side. It's not my primary occupation. It's something I enjoy. Got great listeners, great demographics, and I've had some really great guests come on, but some people don't want to come on because they don't understand what you just said as part of the growth process of getting to bigger and bigger things. But additionally, you are reaching new people. That's what I like about when I go on other shows, is that you don't know who might be listening, who you might reach, and we're cross-pollinating. You know, when you share this, some people are going to discover me who might not have known me otherwise. So there's a lot of benefit, and we're creating content and learning as we go. So I want to encourage folks to, get out there. If somebody invites me, when I was starting out speaking, if they had 3 people, if they had 3,000, I'll be there. I'll be there. And now I'm a really incredible speaker.
Exactly.
I was willing to do that for free. I don't speak for free anymore, by the way. But
but you did at one point. But you did at one point.
Hundreds of speeches for free. I sure did.
And like what I tell people all the time is, look, you want to be at the table where major decisions are made, but you haven't done anything to deserve a seat at the table, because you don't have it in you to go get coffee for that table. The person who is willing to go get coffee for the table, I can guarantee you, they do that consistently over time, they will have a seat at the table. Yes. I did it myself. I've seen thousands of people do it in front of my eyes. And I'm not saying hundreds, I'm saying thousands, like directly in front of my eyes. And I know millions of stories of it, which we've all read or seen on video or whatever, right? Like, you need to put in that work to deserve a seat at the table. And if you're not willing to work for free, and like I hear it a lot, right? And I'm not knocking the younger generation, like
I hear that from older generations.
All generations.
I hear from older. I'm not doing that. I'm not
working for free. No way. Yeah, right. Like, I'm not working for free, and it's like, okay, so then keep getting the results that you're getting.
Exactly.
Like, that's it. Like, how could you not want to get coffee for somebody like at the table where you're going to be able to hopefully, like, even slightly remotely get a nugget of a piece of a conversation that you hear.
All right.
And so for me, that's what it's all about. Like, I hear people asking me all the time, like, how do I become a successful real estate agent? Go find the most successful real estate agent in your city and say, listen, can I just go, like, put up your for sale signs for you, and I want $0 for it. I will print your listings. I will put up your lock boxes. I will do everything you ask me. I'll clean your toilets if that's what you want me to do, because I just want to be immersed in the conversations that you're having.
Right.
And it's the quickest way.
you've got a reference going forward. And for my American people who are hearing this and going, oh, hell to the no, that can also mean, for me, a lot of my work was nonprofit. I've been in all sorts of organizations and associations, and I may have been writing something, I may have been setting up a room, I may have been giving out raffle tickets. And I mean, this was after I graduated from dental school, so some people would be like, I'm not going to do that, but a lot of those connections, a lot of that network, and a lot of reaching out to the community. When I went to do other things, they recognized me. They knew my name. They knew that I was invested and engaged, and I didn't just come up, wanting accolades and recognition, and I hadn't done the work. So there's so many ways that you can go get that coffee if you're just very, very opposed to going and get some coffee. But for someone who is addicted, speaking of addictions, someone who is addicted to coffee, that is a good way to get in my good graces. My former manager was with me 10 years, and she knew. I never asked her, but she just started doing it. When I walked in the door, she would have coffee for me. And oh my God, I love that woman so much. When people came in, I was like, you have to get along with her. Let me tell you right now, you don't have a problem with her, or you got a problem with me. I don't care what she did. That's the way it is. That's how it's gonna be. So yeah, you build a bond that way. So let's talk about your podcast. You started out congratulating me on mine, but you've got a business podcast that's really interesting. I like it.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, my one of my business partners, mentors, really third older brother of mine passed away quite tragically. And he and I appreciate that. He was really the face of our real estate company in terms of he would be the one going on stage, doing the events and putting out the content, not really on a social perspective, because that really wasn't that hot at that time, but definitely doing all the live events. And so when he passed away, it truly left a gaping hole in our organization, right? And I was lucky enough to be his right-hand man, getting him coffees for the first 2 years legit. The reason I say cleaning toilets, by the way, quick reference, like going back, that's what I said to him. I never had to clean the toilets, but he knew from the get when I was 23 years old, when I met him, I will clean your toilets, just help me. I was willing to do whatever, right? And so for 13 years, I was able to be his right-hand man. And so I picked up on a lot of stuff. And then when he passed away, I just, call it serendipity. It's really, I guess, being on the frequency of what you're looking for, right? And what I was looking for at that time was how am I going to start to navigate and speak to my clients now, right? I didn't like the cameras. I need 7 of them on me now. That's a different story. But back then, 4 years ago when he passed away, probably about 3.5 years ago, I'm looking into how am I going to produce content, because camera's not going to be for me. I just heard the word podcast, and I started to dig in and find out what is this thing, right? And as I started to research, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like I've been in sales, up until then, whatever it's been, 22, 23 years. And obviously on sales calls, like the phone, my whole life, nobody's ever really told me that I have the most beautiful, sultry, sexiest voice, but they didn't say you have like a weird, annoying voice either. So I'm like, oh, I get to speak into a mic. That's pretty cool. It's free. Mom, negotiating over apples back home. I hear the word free and I can distribute it to the whole world at no cost. Checkbox for me. And it's something that not a lot of people know of, meaning there's no one in my competition in my realm in Toronto real estate that's even doing this. You got to go back 3.5 years. I mean, the world of podcasting has moved really, really quickly. In fact, when I started to do the research, only 10 to 14% of people actually had a platform that they actually went to listen to a podcast. Like I'm just talking about the general marketplace.
Yeah, I know.
Like only about 10 to 14%, right? And now today in 2022, I mean, you're up to about 68, 72% of people have downloaded some type of podcast platform. That's when I said, okay, I'm gonna try this. And I did my first 16, 17 episodes talking about how to buy a home, how to sell a home, how to invest a home, all the stuff that I knew anyways. I didn't really bring on guests until probably episode 12 or 13,
Right.
because I started getting like, you know, kind of tired of my own voice. So I started bringing on guests. But episode 17 and 18, I sat down with my VP, who just happens to have an MBA in marketing and branding, right? So just a brilliant, brilliant girl. And she said to me, she said, look, what else are you passionate about? And I was like, I love like sales. It's me. It's, you know, obviously talking to me for whatever long we have now, doctor, you know that. And I like talking to people about my journey. I don't want to speak to people like I've done it. I want people to be kind of a fly on the wall on and be part of my journey through the ups and downs. I like that. I don't want people to just see all the shiny, good, positive stuff. I do want to talk about the hard times in business as well. And so we started to open up the topics, and that for me was quite freeing, because episode 17, 18, I probably would have quit. I would have quit because I just got tired of real estate talk. Right. I was doing it every day with my clients. And then my fun part, which is the podcast, my side hustle was also that, right? And I love real estate, but not as much as sales and business and people and leadership. And so that's when we opened it up. And you know, I'm at episode 186, 187 now. I've had the likes of Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, Patrick Bet-David, Robert Kiyosaki, the late, great Bob Proctor, who's from Toronto, but just an amazing person. Right. The list goes on and on and on and on. I've been so lucky. And the people that I met, it's funny, right? Like we were talking about being on other people's podcasts. Like having my own podcast allowed me to put in the reps to be comfortable to be on other people's podcasts. Being on other people's podcasts has allowed me to put in the reps to be better at doing my own podcast. It's such a nice, it comes full circle, right? Constantly, you're learning, right? You're just learning so much. And so the podcast for me has been like, it's my third child. Like I, you know, I'll say my businesses are my kids as well. But truly the love I have for my podcast, it's starting to come back out again, because we're in construction mode in my office, and because we're just busy and like growing, and I need to give desks and chairs to a bunch of people. But I finally said, with that core group of team, that core team of mine, that you know what, it's time to like really take the podcast to the next level now. And so we're actually building a studio. We're building a space around it, rather than me just doing it anywhere, like just sitting anywhere and just doing, which I love, the ready, fire, aim aspect, like just start shooting and pulling the trigger. But the podcast has really opened the door, so many doors for me. And then, I mean, for anybody who's listening right now that is thinking, well, why the heck would I need to do a podcast? Look, if you need someone's awareness for whatever you're selling or helping somebody with, or wanting to be the mayor of the city you're in, you need their awareness. And one way to get it is by doing a podcast, especially if you do it through video, because you can take that video and repurpose all the content. And that's what I do quite well, where I'll take a 45-minute conversation, and out of an hour conversation, I'll probably get anywhere from 20 to 25 little pieces. And I'm not just talking about video, I'm talking about images and blogs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love doing the clips. And there's so many easy tools if you don't have a media team. There's so many ways to do that and repurpose it. And sometimes I'm doing a throwback from 20 years ago and people just love it. Or let me say 10 years ago, because I've been on YouTube and podcasting and all of this for about 10 years or so. So, you know, good lessons there in how to market and promote yourself. So before we go, Jazz, tell us about your other company, From the Ground Up Media.
Yeah, we you know, for the kids out there, we have to put it, you know, you have to put out an acronym out there, right? So we call it FTGU, FTGU, which does stand for From the Ground Up. For us, From the Ground Up, the name really is very, very important, because that's just how we build everything. The business, the real estate business, was built from the ground up. This company is going to be built from the ground up, one person at a time. And what it is because I started to produce so much content other real estate agents and mortgage advisors, what you guys would know as loan officers in the States, they started to come to me like, dude, we see you everywhere. I can't, I turn on YouTube, I see you. I turn on iTunes and Spotify, I see you. I go to TikTok, you're there. I go to Facebook, I can't get away from you. And I'm like, well, that's great. It's better than not seeing me anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm putting myself out there real hard, right? And they said, well, we want to do that. And I was like, great. Here, let me show you what I did. I gave them, Doctor, I gave people a 39-page guide that explained exactly how to like extract an audio file from a video and how I clip it, how I get those 20 pieces, who I hired, how much I pay them, all of it. Like I gave it all away for free. I didn't ever care to charge for that stuff because I was never thinking about a media company. I was focused on my personal brand and my real estate company. And then I check in with these real estate agents and loan officers 3 months later and say, how's it going? I haven't done anything. I don't have the time. Can we just use your people? Like, use my people? Like, they work full time for me. They have so much content to cut. And then so one or two people really started to say, come on, Jazz, can you just do a couple of videos for us? I said, sure, we did it. And then, you know, it's funny how things like the universe works. You start to put your mind to something, all these doors, you start to get in front of all these opportunities. More agents started to come. And so myself and my VP in the real estate company, the girl that has the MBA in marketing and branding, I said, look, you've always wanted to own a business. I kind of don't like, you know, really doing things by myself. I like having people around me. Do you want to kind of go partners on this? And she said, I would love to. Let's do this. And so she's really the system oriented person. I like to think I'm the beauty behind the brains in that partnership, where I'm definitely the beauty behind the brains in the other one for sure. So we started to 9 months ago, started to create content for real estate agents on a monthly basis. That's helping them create a podcast, doing educational webinars for their clients, shooting short form videos, writing blogs, whatever's kind of needed from a content perspective. And I'm very proud to say, I think we're at 21 clients right now that we serve. It's been really cool because we went up to like 32 and we moved way too fast. And grew way too fast, and we saw so many holes in our business. We're like, oh, stop! We can't grow too quickly, right? It's let's back up and let's build some more systems. We hired more people, and it's really cool because right now, every dollar that is made goes right back into the company. I've been here before, right? Like I know what to do here this time around. What took me 17 years in the real estate company, I'll do that in half this time in terms of revenues. I just know it because I don't have to hit my head against the wall as many times as I did before. And I didn't, on my real estate company side, I didn't have the confidence to hire people at the start, where this time it's all about hiring people. Like I'm like, hire. Let's, as long as we're making more than we're spending, we're good. Just stay in the black and we're going to be fine. And then there will be a critical point where we're not going to have to hire as many people. And then we can start to see that profit.
And the growth takes off. Great lessons about startup there and investing back in the company. And that's why so many fail, as you know, is that the revenues are just not there and they're trying to do things and in fact scale up too quickly. I love that you said that and gave that example, you know, just being honest. That happens. The growth is going too fast. We need to stop and reconcile.
Or you know what I think a lot of people do as well is that they try to take all the money off the table and into their pockets, right? Because they want to go buy the Gucci and the Rolexes and the cars. Not that there's anything wrong with it, you know what I mean? But if you want to grow something of scale and actually have it, like have a business that lasts long, you need to leave money on the table, right? It's not about, you know, showing that you got the fanciest stuff to your friends, because you can get all of that if you're just patient enough. Just wait, just hold off. The longer you can hold off, the more will come to you.
And be data driven, watching your numbers, watching what's going out and coming in and not taking a moment or a person for granted. Absolutely wonderful. I've learned a lot just listening to you. I'm super inspired. I want you to tell, before we go, tell folks how to connect with you. We've mentioned several businesses and I know you're on social and LinkedIn, but what's an easy way to get to you and then be able to connect?
Doctor, I mean, I'm so grateful for you to just have me on. I hope I brought value to at least one person today. I'm not hard to find. I'm all over the place. My favorite probably platform right now is probably Instagram, and that's my first name and last name, JASTAKHAR, and the lucky number 1313. So that's Jazz Takhar 13. You'll see the good-looking Indian guy's picture on the profile there.
All right,
With my all right, and let's connect there, and then you'll kind of go into my wheelhouse.
Hey, we will drop that in the show notes as well. And folks, you'd be wise to connect with him. He's got a lot going on and you can learn a lot. And he is freely giving away information that will help you grow your business and for your personal development. Appreciate you so much, Jazz Takhar. And you're welcome back anytime on Perpetual Motion with Dr. Moe Anderson.